Ambassador R. Swaminathan, former senior diplomat, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, who during his career had a stint on deputation with the IAEAs with us. Thank you, Ambassador Swaminathan. Now, what are the strategic implications of Iran resuming uranium enrichment at higher levels despite the recent airstrikes on its facilities?
There are, Mark, thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
So there are two aspects. One is, does Iran wish to resume immediately? I mean, is that a possibility even? As you know, your bureau reports have just mentioned that the nuclear facilities in terms of Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan, they are severely damaged. Of course, there are various kind of interpretation as to what is the extent of damage. And US, of course, has clearly mentioned so far that is obliterated. Whereas Israel has been saying that it has been set back by few years. And of course, IAEA also says that serious damage as well as Iran. The fact of the matter is that Iran has been able to enrich uranium up to 60%. So to go for higher enrichment, it is always easily possible. But have they done it? They did not do it in the past. Will they be doing it now? That, of course, is a matter of speculation. But the fact is that from all factors considered at this point of time, that Iran would probably go in a more cautious manner. Say, for instance, after the attack that happened, Iran's air defense was completely, in a sense, collapsed. So with all these implications and the fact that, if they do not get to the negotiating table, there will be other serious implications which will be coming. So I would imagine that Iran will get back to the negotiating table. They do not have, their facilities are not up and running at this point of time. They are severely damaged, though they may have centrifuges. So this is what is the present status.
Ambassador Swaminathan, also, how credible are Rafael Grossi's assessments about Iran's nuclear capabilities? I mean, there is no access to the sites. So do they also reveal the limitations for international monitoring at the current time?
IAEA was established in 1957. So their safeguards department has 70 years of expertise. At this point of time, internationally, there are about 30 countries which operate nuclear power plants. So IAEA has been safeguarding many of these facilities. I would say almost 99% of these facilities. They do have a major expertise in terms of safeguards. And also over a period of time, IAEA's expertise had developed in terms of it's expanded. Say, for instance, when it originally started, it was only the declared material and the declared facilities need to be inspected. But then after the 1991 Gulf War, IAEA, along with all the other member states, developed what is called an additional protocol. As per this additional protocol, the countries which have signed NPT and which have signed additional protocol also, as to not only declared facilities, IAEA has now the capacity to find out what is undeclared through expanded kind of a reporting, environmental sampling, and intrusive and intensive inspection. Therefore, I would say at one level, the expertise of IAEA cannot be questioned. But then in terms of sometimes what happens is there can be a minor political overtones in terms of things being reported. But otherwise, IAEA is a professional organization and they have a capacity to be able to find out whatever is happening in most of the countries.
So you said that Iran would likely return to negotiations, but to what extent, is Iran's threat to leave the NPT a negotiating tactic versus a genuine pivot towards, a nuclear weapons capability?
You would have, of course, I think it came in your bureau reports also, that the Majlis of Iran has already passed a bill which says that they will have to stop the cooperation with IAEA. But then that is only the first step. The second step also has been done because it needs to be approved by Iranian Guardian Council, which already happened 2 days ago. But then the important thing is it has to go through further 2 steps. It has to be approved by the Iranian Supreme National Security Council and also by the Supreme Leader subsequently. So at this point of time, though this was done 2-3 days ago, Iran has not gone to that state. Today, of course, the spokesperson of the Iranian Foreign Ministry, what he mentioned was that he was questioning, he was probably expressing rather a concern that the safety and security of IAEA inspectors. So I think it's a kind of a negotiating tactics to kind of up the ante. As such, see, for example, if Iran had wished to leave NPT, they could have done quite some time ago because they know the implications if they were to leave the NPT. So, which is a big restraint for them not to leave the NPT, because if they leave NPT, then what happens? In fact, they're already under severe sanctions, and then it is going to be even much worse. And the fact that Iran had only restrained attack in response to US attack on its nuclear facilities itself in a manner indicates that they would be more willing to have a negotiated solution eventually rather than, leaving NPT and other aspects.
Ambassador Swaminathan, also, what does there seems to be a lack of international response. One would say it's not showing that kind of interest in the nuclear issue of Iran. Does it signal, something about the state of nuclear diplomacy and its usefulness, actually? Or people are just, expecting big powers to play a big role?
The thing is that in terms of leverage on Iran for other countries, they were somewhat limited. So, but at the same time, if you say there was a lot of international concern, every country, including us, every one of us wanted the things to be de-escalated, and no one wanted a full-fledged war in that region, because that would mean that, like the entire oil and other economic-related issues will be very severely impacted. In fact, as far as we are concerned, we also have a large population, Indian population, which is in Gulf. Therefore, I would say that international concern was very much there. But then, as you were mentioning, that it was the US which held the cards. And even if you take the case of US, they did not wish to have a long, prolonged war. What US administration did was a one-time operation, which was targeting their nuclear facilities, which again, of course, there is a different interpretation in terms of whether it was achieved their objectives or not. So therefore, I would say the international concern was very much there. And that is the reason why I think the thing stopped within 12 days. And at this point of time, we have a ceasefire.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Swaminathan, former senior diplomat, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you for joining us and putting all this into perspective.